So I just want to say a few quick thank yous. I want to thank the audience for coming, those who are not part of the presentations. This, of course, is these are the final presentations to the Columbia community for the three capstones, actually 3 of the 4 capstones that were run, 3 of the 4 projects, I should say, in the capstone that was run this semester. The 4th one, who wasn't presenting today, that was done actually last week. Dr. Horton was running that in Rockland County. So today you're going to hear the other 3. One of which I want to thank Diana Dietrich for actually locating this fascinating client at West Point and for actually taking the lead on leading this team, and you're going to be hearing about them first. So administratively, I want to thank Jessica and Natalie for their unending help with every detail. The workshop just couldn't go ahead smoothly without them. I want to thank the administration, the SUSDEV administration, for supporting this capstone. It just changes every semester. It's always a lot of fun, and we look forward to keep going and improving it, and ever onward with more clients as we go forward. So I think we're just going to jump right into the first one.
We're -1 team member.
Okay.
Yes.
How about we give a minute for the team? One more minute, 1 or 2 more minutes. I was asked to tell the speakers, the student speakers, to speak into the microphone as much as you can because it's being recorded. It's going to be posted somewhere. If anyone has any questions for me about the capstone, I'll be happy to elaborate. Okay, right on time. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to the manager, Aida, who's going to introduce this project. By the way, these talks are brief. They're only going to be 10 minutes or so. We did that because some semesters, we have a lot of teams presenting. One year we had 7 teams presenting, and if they went more than 10, it's just too long. So we decided to shorten these presentations for you. These sort of like abbreviated versions of presentations that they're going to give to the client. Actually, West Point gave their presentation already this week, but the other 2 teams are going to be meeting with their clients to give a longer presentation. So none of the clients are here today. This is just for your benefit, and we'll be seeing them on Thursday. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to the West Point team.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Aida Conroy. These are my teammates, Basin Menier and Diego Garcia. And first, we'd like to thank West Point for this incredible opportunity, specifically their Russell Lachance and Bruce Keese, who've been a colonel, and 2 professors that we've been working with who have been really phenomenal. And then secondly, we'd like to thank Diane, who's really been just as much of the team as more of a mentor and faculty member. She's been an excellent example of what teaching can do, and we've learned from her a tremendous amount, I think. So today we'll be presenting a semester's worth of work on building campus capacity for a culture of sustainability at West Point Military Academy. So just a little bit about the history of this project. Bruce Heath and Diane Dietrich have been working together since May of 2012 to get this project up and running. The project really came to fruition because of the DoD's net zero energy policy, which is a program that they have chosen different military bases and schools to go net zero on either energy, waste, or water by 2020, and so we have kind of been brought on as a consultant in order to enhance their culture of sustainability that will then enhance their net zero energy, the possibility of going net zero energy by 2020. We wanted to paint a picture of a little bit about what life at West Point is like, because it's very different from Columbia, and a lot of the restrictions that West Point cadets have constrain what we could have recommended to them. So they lead extraordinarily busy lives, and by busy I mean they are up at 6 o'clock in the morning. They have only one break of an hour between 4 o'clock. Then at 4 o'clock they have a series of military and athletic trainings until 7:30. Every single cadet eats the same thing with each other at the same time in a group of 4,000. It's served just like the plate comes out. You have no choice. You eat what is in front of you. So in terms of sustainable dining, you have to kind of think differently. And then from then on, a lot of their grading is not just academic. It's actually 50% academics, 15% physical, and then 35% military. And then the government funding is a huge part of West Point, obviously, and that we run into a lot with current restrictions that are happening in the White House and with the Pentagon. And so this has a direct impact on how West Point functions. So within their net zero energy compact right now, they have to do this without any money. So the challenge is going net zero energy with no funding. So a little bit about the project. The main purpose of this project was to assess and evaluate how West Point can create a stronger culture of sustainability and engage students in this culture. So basically, we had two parts of our project. The first was school research. So we chose 6 different schools that currently have strong cultures of sustainability, and they were identified by the STARS report and also the grading of the ASHE STARS report. So the 6 schools were Columbia, Middlebury, Oberlin, University of Michigan, University of Vermont, and Yale. So we did the first half of our semester, we spent researching what programs really worked and then trying to apply them to a series of recommendations after going to West Point several different times. And so the takeaways from our university research were that student empowerment on campus is really important. If students are feeling like they can really get out there and affect change in their own culture, and working with the administration is really important, as is an Office of Environmental Stewardship or Sustainability. The administration has to kind of make sustainability a priority first, along with this grassroots student movement, because that's where the funding is going to come from. Additionally, students have to be involved in a very high level of decision making, along with their faculty and administrators.
So next up is our findings of West Point based on observations. Going on several trips over there, we realized that stewardship is a highly valued trait. Cadets are also well informed about current practices, and energy is a focus point throughout the first year curriculum. However, cadets do identify that recycling is a large challenge in creating a more sustainable West Point. For instance, there's not a lot of recycle bins on campus, pretty appalling actually. And so in the cafeteria, you don't really see any recycling bins. But anyway, so green campaigns must continue, but with more metrics on cost savings and environmental benefit. Students are not aware of energy usage or cost of energy usage because they're not billed. So there's a bit of moral hazard here, but maybe if they have a mock billing system, they can eradicate that. Also, food consumption is not carefully calibrated at the dining hall. When we ate there, it was ridiculous. It's family style, and half of it is left over. What a waste. This brings us to our next point on recommending dining hall initiatives. So we recommend donating unserved campus dining food to local organizations that feed the community. There's a very impoverished community. I think it's called Fredericksburg, right? Oh, Newburgh. Okay, Newburgh, and they could donate to there. Just have a waiver that says you can't sue us if you get sick or whatever. There's also a develop waste reduction plan to track all foods served every day in order to reveal student dining preferences and to gauge how much to make each day. It could be like a science project where, say you commission a group of students from a science or math class to calibrate scientifically the amount consumed per cadet on average, and they could save up to half of food costs right there. And then we also recommend to compost food waste and encourage trayless dining to reduce food. So next is a very interesting point to boost their athletic program. It's actually a proposal, and we called it the Green Warrior Bowl. Basically, we want to create an NCAA postseason collegiate athletic bowl game. And this will generate awareness by combining the spirit of patriotism with the green movement transcended by this bowl game. It's really interesting because the venue that we selected is actually just as important as the concept itself, because location, right? So we picked the new Santa Clara Stadium, home of the future home of the San Francisco 49ers, to be opened in 2014, seats about 70,000 people, and state-of-the-art, a sustainable modern marvel in itself. So this will promote also sustainability. It will reinforce that concept. And so for bowl weekend events, we propose also to kick off the bowl weekend with a special symposium where the Army meets Silicon Valley and San Francisco Bay Area Renewable Energy Innovation Summit and Symposium, basically where you take key players in the green economy, venture capitalists, scientists, corporations, green businesses, all coming together to help brainstorm with the military officials at West Point plus the Department of Defense to come up with innovative solutions to addressing energy security and also combating, figuring out ways to combat sequestration, because that seems to be the excuse for why they can't do anything. Halftime award show, this is really unique because we propose administering the first ever Green Stripe Award to the top officer who has demonstrated him or herself as being sustainable both on and off the field, off the battlefield. So this would be a great way to really raise the bar for the military. And also, we also have proposed a Green Warrior Laurel for the top cadet at West Point, who has also demonstrated all these sustainability at the highest level.
So we focused a lot on energy since West Point is part of the Net Zero Energy Initiative as part of the DoD, and we think that there should be a substantial focus on energy conservation as well as production, and a lot of universities right now aren't focusing on energy production, and this puts West Point in an incredible position because they have a lot of land, and also like if they could find the resources through public-private partnerships, they would be able to start producing their own energy, which would help them achieve net zero status by 2020. One of the things we recommended was a creation of a task force of not only cadets but also faculty members and students to help kind of like guide and research these different energy production initiatives, as well as like reducing consumption, which is very high there because, like we said, cadets don't really have a feel for how much energy and waste they're producing. To increase cadet awareness, we wanted to put in a pseudo-billing system of some sort, or a way that they could see and measure the energy that they're using on a day-to-day basis. Initially, and also we'd like to integrate energy and other resources constraints into their test missions. So the forward operating bases are like nearby campus, but pretty far away, and it's where they do a lot of their training for missions. And we want to create energy FOBs. So right now, when they are, doing a test mission, they don't have to take into account any of their resource constraints. So if the test mission is to get from point A to point B, they can just drive this way and use as much gas as they'd like instead of driving from point A to point B. So resource constraint is an issue, outside of this pseudo world, but they don't create any restraints at all. And so utilizing these FOBs to educate on energy conservation and how they can use that in the field is really important.
So West Point has a lot of sustainability initiatives going on, but they do not have a central hub for all the initiatives. So we researched, as the beginning of our project, we researched all the top schools that had great sustainability programs, and all of them had offices of sustainability. So that became one of our very important recommendations for West Point. They already have the basis of it. They have an energy council and they have energy officers. What they don't have is money. So what we did is suggest that they start on a volunteer basis, figure out savings and inefficiencies that they can identify, and then based on that actual money, justify the creation of an office and a paid position. The office will be a hub for everything on campus and initiate all of the potential public-private partnerships, which is the only way that West Point will be able to get anything done since their budget is actually being cut. Public-private partnerships on West Point will basically be private companies contracted to identify inefficiencies and provide infrastructure where needed for programs that they deem are important. They'll obviously focus on reducing costs and reducing the carbon footprint. One issue that West Point had was their recycling system. They had a situation where they could earn $100,000 per year with recycling initiatives. However, they didn't have the $100,000 of seed money that would be needed to start that program. Our suggestion is for them to go to a private company to provide the seed money and then have that private company actually be the recipient of all of the recycling profits. Additionally, as Aida suggested, a sustainable FOB, which is the forward operating base, could also be paid for by private companies. And these companies would use the FOB as a test bed for their products, and to potentially be able to show the military that their products are worthwhile. So our project got pretty deep. It was a lot of fun. The ultimate goal was to foster a relationship between West Point and Columbia, because it was the first time that any type of relationship like this happened. And doing so, we recognize that every client is going to have their own challenges and their own needs. But ultimately, we realized that working with a client like West Point goes way deeper than traditional corporate clients. And their initiatives and their savings ultimately reflect life-saving metrics. And for that, we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So I think we're running on schedule. We've left a few minutes for questions for each team, 5 minutes, but if,
Did y'all look at the Marine? I'm sorry. Did y'all look at the Marine Corps' initiatives as far as feeling like they've got 2 or 3 companies in Afghanistan that use solar power to power all their radio equipment, stuff like that, as a possibility for a model for the FOBs, and then also branching out to, say, Annapolis and the Marine Corps once you got this set up with the Army?
Yes, we definitely did. And we did, and we are actually privileged enough to see some of the Army's new technology, the Swipes gear, which is a gigantic solar blanket and toolkit that can leach power from any source in order to recharge in the field. That was cool stuff. Yeah.
So lots of great recommendations. Just a couple questions. One, what's your feeling about whether or not these recommendations will be implemented? And also, what's your sense of the longevity of the Net Zero initiative? Do you think that this is something that will continue to move forward?
So some of our recommendations, I think, especially like we worked a lot with individual cadets who were like trying to facilitate change on campus. And I think like some of our recommendations, these weren't all of them, that we like cut them down pretty significantly. So these, I think, were the more advanced ones that are going to take a lot of funding. And I think without the public-private partnerships, if they can't get a hold of those, there's just not enough funding to create like an Office of Sustainability full-time staff position that's paid. But like they could start with volunteers, and we actually identified certain people who might be able to kind of lead that office or like the volunteer brigade for that. In terms of net zero energy by 2020, I don't think that it would happen in the next 7 years or 6.5 years. They would have to really start moving very, very quickly, and especially in terms of energy production, because it's just like too much now. But I think it's like a good goal, and they will eventually see it, I think.
Does West Point have the authority to enter into public-private partnerships without the approval of the Department of Defense?
Yeah, they would need the DoD's approval, and that process is actually really, really complicated.
It would actually take legislation.
You made a comment about how much land West Point owns and potentially generating their own energy. Can you comment on that? In what respect would they use that land to generate energy?
Right, so it would primarily be solar and wind and utilizing those resources. And on the FOB, like the idea is that they would have an energy FOB, and that the energy, like part of the DoD would fund that. And so that wouldn't be a public-private partnership, and like that FOB could be used as a resource base and a research base for the Army in general.
Were you able to identify any other potential incentives for volunteers, as opposed to, you mentioned creating possibly a full-time position, but if that's not possible, some other incentives for volunteers?
The currency at West Point is time. So people that do extra work potentially get to sleep in a little bit, but not much. I mean, they're already on a full volunteer basis, and they're doing it just for the intrinsic value. And there's some good people up there that know it's the right thing to do, but they're getting resistance from sort of the old timers a bit, and the facilities, which they call the garrison over there. So.
Great, thanks. I have one question. Is it true that the DoD is the largest consumer of energy and producer of waste in the U.S.? I don't know if you said that.
Yeah.
Energy, yes, and West Point is the largest consumer of energy in their region as well.
Puts the importance of this project in perspective, right? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for those great questions.